Namaste, Mohanji, and welcome, dear friends. As you may have seen the daily live sessions right here on the Mohanji official Facebook page, I feel so happy and so blessed to be part of this beautiful series called Reinvent Yourself with Mohanji Acharyas. Today, we have Mohanji Acharyas Biljana from Serbia, Arun from the United Kingdom, and we have Bimal from the United States, and myself, Maheshwari from South Africa. Today, we will be discussing the topic of overcoming lethargy with practical spirituality. So please join us. And, you know, my fellow dear Acharyas and myself will be going through some really hard-hitting questions. What exactly is, practical spirituality? How to overcome, tiredness, fatigue, especially with the current situations that we face, the global crisis, the economic crisis, even the personal crisis as well, overcoming personal difficulties and struggles like that. So we can get right to it. I have a question for you, Biljana. What does practical spirituality mean to you?
Well, in the context of overcoming lethargy, practical spirituality means how to become a better person every day and more useful and better to myself and everybody around me. Actually, all my life, as long as I can remember this inner talk in myself, so probably after this period of a child, I remember how I started consciously striving, like everybody else, in two ways, either towards the bliss of love, which is priority to me, and the other is going away from suffering, how to reduce this suffering for myself and everybody whom I can reduce it. So these are like two lines which I was following: increasing this bliss of love and reducing the suffering. And from time to time, listening to my inner talk and observing myself in various actions, what I realized is that I need to act properly, and this will happen. There is higher is probability that I will experience this bliss of love and reduce the suffering. I remember this especially motivating for me was like when I heard, do you want to be a fire or just a snail leaving, slime behind yourself? So what would you like your life to be like? And many people think that if you're spiritual, so you know which values you are going to follow: love, kindness, compassion, selflessness, sharing, caring, giving to others, unconditional love, forgiving, letting go, etc. So in that, I noticed that there is some kind of too much softness and inactivity, passive attitude towards that. Why would we like giving excuses and behaving like an escapist, just saying, okay, this is karma, what can I do? There is nothing to do about it. Or why would you do something like, okay, everything is destiny, why would I do anything about it? So this is totally wrong. Actually, spirituality and the word itself, meek, let's say a word meek, itself in Hebrew and Greek origin doesn't mean you're like soft, mild, naive, innocent. It doesn't mean that. It actually means having a weapon and do not, take it out of your sheath. Actually keep it within the sheath. So you are strong, you're energetic, you can fight, you can be a warrior, you can express yourself in life, but you do not be violent. And of course, do not be passive or just reactive. So in that way, I realized how I can plow this, my garden of inner space. Not because weeds just grow by themselves. I realized if I don't do anything, I will just slow down and become inert And after this first love, especially this, let's say, a disappointment, frustration of the first love, as a teenager, I realized how I cannot, with my own will, affect much, but there is a plenty of things that I can do. And these negative thoughts, the more painful negative thoughts were, the more I wanted to get rid of them. I realized by thinking about pure action, something good that I'm going to do, I occupy my mind, intellect, I occupy myself with good thoughts, and then I don't leave space for those, let's say, negative and painful ones. In that way, this is one aspect. Another one, when I met Mohanji, he gave much more energy, let's say. And what happened, let's say, when he was around me, I became so much more efficient and productive, like jungling all kinds of activities. And then he invited me once and said, okay, now this is how you do and how you perform when I'm here around. Now you do it when I'm not there, physically, I mean. So this is what happens when we are connected to that source, to that immense, let's say, million voltage energy. We can just tap into that power and perform as much as we want, as much as we allow ourselves to be. What I realized and learned also, Mohanji, there are various levels of this lethargy. It can be on physical level, like when we don't want to get up, and when Mohanji says, okay, success is between the period when you wake up and get up. So if you're able to, get up as soon as you wake up, the more successful you are. This is one point. And another point is also, let's say, on the mental and emotional level, because blame game is what people usually fall into. I myself blamed a lot, let's say, my parents when I was young. Why didn't they offer me like a new flat, a new, let's say, job? Why didn't they offer me connections to find better job and better place of living? And I don't know what else, maybe studying at a better university, or being even more peaceful in the family. So whatever I could imagine, I blamed them. And I realized that it was totally wrong. I just could remember one woman said, okay, you're healthy, you have your arms, legs, brain, you're free, do whatever you want. So who cares? So these parents, just leave them alone. They're not that guilty. So this is also very important. Letting go of this blame game, whoever it is, whether in your own surrounding or whether it is politicians, government, country, or whoever else. So this is else. And also procrastination. I try to do immediately things that I want to do, because when I had a lot of things to do, I realized when I leave them for later time or date, I forget it. So I completely forget it, and then I'm frustrated, angry, so lower my frequency with that, not accomplishing what I wanted to. In that way, I try to do everything as soon as possible. And however, tired I am, I try to finish it off, because the next day something else will come. And also in the morning, then I feel this satisfaction. Okay, I gave an extra mile. I went an extra mile. I gave extra effort and succeeded it. So finished it off. That's one point. What drives me, Yelena, for example, a friend of mine asked me, oh, you're with Mohanji so many years. So where do you find this enthusiasm and energy to always do, perform, give, whatever? And then I thought, okay, yes, there are also these two things. One is trying to avoid this suffering, and the other is the bliss of love. And through Mohanji, I felt and still feel this, ecstatic love. Ecstatic love, which is incomparable with, let's say, partner's love or family or any kinds of other love, because it flows constantly. It's not dependent on, anything external. It's from within, from the heart. And in that way, I'm like always in ecstatic love, like, and whenever I think of Mohanji, this is like overflowing, you know, bliss. So this is what gives me more and more elan, energy, more and more potential, more possibilities he's always sending. Imagine where you're in love, how you want to do good things to your beloved. You want to do everything, you know, buy him, nurture him, give him attention or attract attention or whatever, in whichever way. As Mohanji is not just person, physical person, I realized that I can, by serving the world, treat like that everyone and share this, you know, love, share this attention, share this favors. But I'm not, when I serve the world, I don't feel it like favor. I just do it without expecting anything in return. So that's my attitude towards everyone and everything, not only to Mohanji, let's say physically. So he said, really, really, never justify this inertia or never justify this laziness, because this is a self-destructive tendency. I realized that, as I mentioned in my earlier days, it even brought me once to deep depression. I was totally inefficient out of social life because of that for a year or even more. And really felt how bad it could be, what agony it is if you don't do anything differently. So why do we need to, you know, hit our head into the wall to realize that we can learn it from others? Of course, we are here in one discussion. My attention is that if someone can prevent himself from falling down, let's say more and more in frequency, lower and lower in frequency, into bitterment or into disappointment or depression, this is just, let's say, a goodwill to maybe listen to this and go along the path more smoothly. But as if we say we can bring someone, let's say we say we can bring someone or horse to the water, but we can't make them drink. Similarly, we can bring someone who is sleepy a bed, but we can't make them sleep. Or as Mohanji said, I can point you where to look, but I won't tell you what to see. This talk is also goodwill, but how and what effect it will be, we will see. Yeah, and I can add even more things. How, for example, I combine physical and mental work, because if there is a huge to-do list to do, we can easily get tired. Mental activity, intellectual activity requires rest. So what I learned is that it's good to combine, for example, intellectually challenging jobs, some studying, learning, can be combined with more routine tasks or physically challenging jobs, either going for a walk or exercising, or even if it is playing with children, which is physically challenging. When I had 2 kids, this was also good balance. It doesn't need that you have to, you know, go pay for an hour to exercise in a gym and then go back. No, even good housework can shake you up and at the same time be very useful. So combining this intellectual and physical work, and also then, especially in the evening, those routine jobs like maybe some routine emails and similarly, maybe some ironing or something that doesn't require much physical or mental attention. So when we combine all this, we can really manage a lot and be really productive. Yeah. So even that, if it becomes boring, I love to challenge myself. Let's do it faster. Let's do it better. Let's pack it more. So even a friend called me Speedy Gonzalez because of that, because I love to challenge myself, not to play, play a game. Oh, I can't do it. Why? I have all this pile of, tasks, all of this pile of jobs. When I come tired home, oh, look at these dishes. So I don't leave them for tomorrow, but do them immediately, etc., etc. Yeah, this is the moment where I, even to the basic, simplest thing, I love these challenges. We can really, really do it. So, for example, this attitude, when you think you can't do anymore, when you think it is too much, just change the attitude and see how much energy is there. We just need to tap into it. Okay, energy is there. Okay, I can do it. Let me use it and do even, let's say this, make an extra effort. Yeah, this is to make an extra step. Yeah, so this is a good way to keep our mind in control, right? Apart from this, there is also food, which is very important. Vegan food and this attitude for towards food, which is good, light, nourishing, and not heavy, and not too late. Let's say since 2016, I started. I started eating up to the 6:30 actually in the evening, and then after that I don't eat. So I have this period of fasting, or from 6:30 in the evening until at least 8 or 9 a.m. Sometimes it is even 12. So there are from 12 to 15, 16 hours of fasting, which is sustainable. I tried with challenging myself, let's say, fasting all weekends, but this was too much. So I managed 5 weekends first without food at all, only drinking water, from Fridays evenings until Monday mornings. But then I started thinking too much about food, and then I realized I can't do it every weekend. So this was inspired by Mohanji, that I started practicing on a daily basis, and it is very sustainable. So now it has been 4 years that I've been doing it. So in the morning, I feel bright, light, and I can easily then get up at 4 a.m. because the stomach is light, etc. So this physical aspect, mental aspect, food aspect as well.
Yeah. Wonderful, Biljana. You've actually touched on so many beautiful and different, pointers, so many different techniques for our viewers to take away. It's really amazing, the food aspect, especially that you've touched on. A lot of people are so used to just, being so unconscious with what they eat, and time management regarding that. Something that really touched me, or really sort of shook me, is you said one of Mohanji's teachings is he says that success is based on the time that you wake up to the time that you actually get up. And that's actually something so unique and profound, because so many of us are not so used to, being aware of that few seconds or few minutes, or the time that we spent between getting up in the morning and actually being productive for the day, getting up and experiencing that day. So thank you so much for that beautiful insight as well. Arun, I'd like to pass a question to you. How would you link practical spirituality and overcoming lethargy?
Thank you, Maheshwari. Thank you, Mohanji, for this opportunity, and my divine friends all over the world watching. Thank you for joining. Yes, it's a beautiful question. I will answer by saying, what is practical spirituality as I see it, and then take it from there. Practical spirituality, as I see it, is being authentic, being original, not to pretend for any reason, and express myself as I am without worrying about any social pressures or what others say. That is practical spirituality for me. That involve practice and also as a lifestyle. And also acceptance, accepting myself and my surroundings and those around me and those who meet, interact with, everything accept as complete is another major aspect of practical spirituality for me. By saying this, I'm not saying I have achieved this complete acceptance and completely authentic, and I'm working on it, but these are the aspects I'm looking at it as practical spirituality. To achieve these goals or these objectives, my daily sadhana helped me. Daily sadhana is, I've tried various sadhanas, but I have to say, for me, my special, most ever gift I received from my master, Mohanji, is consciousness kriya. That helped me. That brightens up me. So when I do the kriya as the sadhana to achieve this practical spirituality, my awareness increased day by day. I can feel it. With everyday practice, my awareness increases. So with increased awareness, I can see the patterns. I can observe myself. And I can, to some extent, I can observe, even though not continuously, but after the kriya or that sort of thing, I can observe myself as a third party. How this guy is doing, I can observe, not in a judgmental manner, but observing and understanding, assimilating myself, which help me to identify patterns which I'm doing for ages and ages, probably more lives, I don't know, but patterns going within me as an individual. So in these patterns, I'm going to quote quite a few which relate to the lethargy or the inertia aspect. One of the pattern I noticed on myself is I sleep longer than needed for a long time, for ages, probably almost all my life. I mean, I was as a young student, I used to get up early. That's different. But especially after settling in this Western world in the past 20 years in England, we got something called a duvet, a quilt, which is protect from cold in the night. So when you sleep within that, getting out of it is a mission for me. So I set up the alarm for 6 o'clock alarm, and battle myself until 6:50 for almost long time. This was me. I can see this pattern developing. So this, I took a shook on that 4 years ago, almost in 2016, when I had the blessed opportunity to go to Kailash with Mohanji. So Kailash, this opportunity comes, I need to practice. So I need to walk. So with my work and things, I have to walk, I need to get up early. So from that one, I started from 6:50, it shifted to 5, and consistently sitting at 4 o'clock now, 4 a.m. now. So that's where I'm seeing with the increased awareness, I can observe the pattern and take measures to change myself. Not about forcing or not suppressing anything, but change myself for the better of my side. So that helped me. That's one of the examples. The practical spirituality helped me in fighting inertia. So because when I get earlier, I have more productive hours. I can do more. I can, and also one other thing I do is straight after my morning sadhana, my kriya, when I'm stable and my mind is very clear, I make a list of things I need to achieve on the day and prioritize them. So when I have a list of things and priority, then I can go with that. So organized, so my time better spent and I can do more. So that's one aspect, one pattern I noticed with my sadhana as practical spirituality helped me changing the pattern from inertia to an active person. So because when I get up early, it's everything changed. The other one I observed is I used to overeat a lot. In this area, I'm still working. Probably I would say I'm 60% past, 40% to go, overeat a lot. So in a way, senseless eating, because we all enjoy it. Food is a sensory pleasure. When it's tasty and nice, we happen to eat more. So I ate unconsciously. I can clearly see that. Still working on it. I'm not saying I'm 100% consciously consuming yet, but still working on that. So when I look at that pattern, again, Biljana also touched in them. There's a beautiful point. What we eat have an impact on us. Of course, if I have a feast, then my mind would say, oh, come on, have a nap. Why I need to do some work or that sort of thing. That's human tendency. When we overeat, the belly is full, then you don't feel to work. So then again, I focused on that aspect and still focusing. So working on that. So identifying the second pattern I'm quoting as an example. So I cut back on eating. Of course, I'm vegetarian all my life, but became a vegan 4 years ago. That's helped me as well. Vegan because avoiding dairy products as well. That helped me. And personally, and also when I cut back on food and observe fast time to time and focusing on things, my productivity increase. That I can clearly see. When I eat less, probably half of the stomach, I'm looking for 1/3, as Mohanji always recommend, but still not there. If I eat for half stomach, I'm more productive. So that's another way practical spirituality helped me in fighting the lethargy. The third one, another one I observed very clearly within myself is most of the time I either reconstruct the past in my mind or visualize and imagine the future in my mind. So I was not at the present moment. Still, I'm working on it. Still, I do that. I admit. I visualize the future and making and reconstruct the past, and from that develop the identified fears and creating anxieties for the future, and everything became miserable. I was making myself miserable. Now with this watchful eye of me looking at me, I can see, okay, when oh, come on, you are visualizing the future. Do your business now. I can tell to myself. And you are reconstructing the past. This is useless. It's gone. So flush it and look on what you're going to do there. Any learning, take it and what you're going to do it. So I can. So that's again another aspect. Practical spirituality with the grace of my master helped me in identifying these patterns and focus on myself, and then fighting the inertia or the lethargy. So when we in the presence of mind, more effective, because otherwise I'm supposed to do something, looking at my computer at work, and my mind is somewhere else in the past or future. So how can I be productive? So it's automatically the lethargy step in, because I'm visualizing and daydreaming and not doing anything productively. And also the other one I use is when I feel tired or this sort of feeling, do something physical activity to stimulate the body. That's also help. But these are the three things I would say, three patterns I managed to identify within myself, which probably go for many lives, but at least as I'm aware for most of this life. So definitely for the past 20 years in my living in the Western world. So that's, I identify myself and make changes, observe myself, assimilate myself, and identify the patterns and make changes. That's the way practical spirituality helped me in overcome lethargy. So in summary, if I want to say something, any of my brothers and sisters watching this, if you want to look at practical spirituality as a way to come out of lethargy, use that opportunity to observe yourself, spend time with yourself, assimilate yourself, and see the patterns and see where you can change or where changes would be, or modification would be, provide a better, effective, efficient personality of you, and do that. That's all I have to say, how practical spirituality helped me in the link between practical spirituality and fighting inertia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Arun. It's so amazing. I love the awareness factor. You spoke about going back between past and future and not staying in the present, and how that impacts and increases that tiredness within us. And it's such a beautiful point to remember. Another thing that you touched on was consciousness kriya, and how beautiful and helpful that practice is to become more aware and increases stability within us. So also to know more about consciousness kriya, you can visit the website mohanji.org, and there is more in-depth information on consciousness kriya as well. That is to all the wonderful people who are listening in and watching in at this point. Bimal, I would like to ask you a question as well regarding, practical spirituality and your experiences with overcoming tiredness and fatigue. So take us through some of your spiritual practices that helped you to deal with tiredness or fatigue in your life.
Sure. Thank you, Jay Mohanji. Hello, everyone. If you want to talk about tiredness and fatigue, this is the guy. I have worked so many hours and worked so many days out of the month. I've been known to work some perhaps 56. I think my record was 66 days in a row where I didn't have a day off between my two jobs. So fatigue, tiredness, right here, this guy. But there's been, fortunately, my life has shifted tremendously, and I know how to deal with that tiredness and lethargy and all the associated negativity that comes along with it. My lifestyle when I was younger, I can go a lot further without taking rest and not worrying about these things. But for me, see, practical spirituality, to me, one word really stands out more than anything else. It's practicality. Okay, practicality. Because see, when you say spiritual, a lot of people have an idea that you're some kind of swami wearing a mala. Well, I am wearing a mala, but you're wearing the saffron robe, meditating on the side of the Ganges. It doesn't necessarily mean that anymore. You can be very practical, live your daily life, and be spiritual at the same time. And that is one lesson that I learned from Mohanji, and that is one thing he has taught me. You don't have to give up your daily life. You can be a husband, you can be a father, you can be a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, whatever you need to be, especially a mother, and you could still have spirituality in your life. So it's an adjustment. It's like very much like Arun said. You observe some of the things that you do, your past patterns, and then you adjust accordingly because you know that whatever you're doing in the past or whatever you have done in the past, it's not necessarily making you move forward. It's not advancing your spirituality. So you make minor adjustments as you keep going. So how did I do it? Well, for me, I like to look at my past and to see where I am right now. And I can see the difference and what made the difference. And the only difference between the former Bimal and the current Bimal is the spirituality aspect. Now, growing up in India, of course, there was a lot of religious observance, not much spiritual observance. There's a clear difference between the two, because religious observance is just doing things for the sake of doing it, or pujas for the sake of doing it without even knowing the meaning behind it. I grew up in an environment where all of these things were done. Went to the temple, everything was done by a pujari or a priest, and you just offered some money and everything was done. Did I feel spiritual at that point? Yeah, I kind of did, because I would actually connect to the deity inside the temple, and I would speak to the deity, and I would imagine in my head the deity's speaking back to me, because sometimes I see a smile, sometimes I see something else. So I would see some kind of communication, but it changes over time. So spiritual practicality back then, it was just not much. So what I did in the past is that minor adjustments. Now we all both Biljana and Arun talked about the food aspect of spirituality. That is a great deal, because that does change everything about you. Before, I used to be non-veg, very much a non-veg eater, and now slowly I transitioned into vegetarianism and almost 90% vegan now. The difference is noticeable. Okay, I worked night shift, 10-hour shifts, and for me to survive night shift and come back home and still function relatively normal, and then sometimes even go to another job, it requires not only some kind of like a physical effort, but also your body to work correctly. So if you don't take care of your body, your body cannot take care of you. There's no spiritual practice. So Emoji even said it many times, like there's no use of waiting to take care of your body later. Oh, I'm going to eat better when I get older, because by that time it might be too late already. You cannot adjust. So when I transitioned to a vegetarian diet, I noticed that my body is working a lot better at flushing out all the contaminants, but also my energy level spiked. And I'm talking about spiked. I used to be very, very lethargic, very sleepy, very tired, very low energy when I used to go to work at night, and of course, transition into the day. But because of the diet change, I can sensibly notice a difference. I mean, it is very noticeable. And of course, that also have to do with not only eating vegetarian food, but also healthy vegetarian food, not just junk food. That matters a great deal. So those two things, those things I can compare because I know how I was many years ago, and now I know how I am now. As far as food is concerned, it's a big difference. As far as spiritual practice, of course, like I said, religious practice was there before, and as you can see behind me, there is still religious practice every day and every morning and evening. But that is also transitioned to more of a spiritual practice because now, whenever we do light the temple in the morning, you connect to the deity, you connect to Mohanji, you connect to whoever is you're praying to, and same thing in the evening. So morning and evening, as the night transitions to day and day transitions to night, you light the diya for that transition period, and that also becomes part of spirituality, and that connects you even further. At least in my experience, it has helped me a great deal. And now that we do more chanting, that even connects you even more into spirituality, and it connects you to the whole universe, and you could kind of sense how the whole deities are talking back to you and they're helping you, and it's a wonderful feeling. It's not something that's light or it's not something that's surreal. It's actually presently felt. Where if we actually skip our temple practice, our home temple practices, let's say for 2 days or 3 days, for whatever reason, we're not home. And the first day we light the temple after we come back from vacation or whatever, it's almost like a relief in the house. You could feel the difference. You could feel the spiritual aspect. You could feel the energy of the house changing because of what you do in the household. So there's there's a lot of that, and there's also in my behavior as well, right? So there's the food, the rituals, but also how I behave. So in the past, I would, like everybody else, I would get angry at situations, get upset, and like you guys were saying, reflect on the past, get upset at the past, and look at the future and worry about the future. Well, again, Mohanji says, why bother with all that? Future's not existing yet. The past is already gone. What are you worried about? Stay in the moment. And that really does help. It really helps tremendously. My interactions with people also have changed, where I'm more sympathetic and more understanding of everybody. So how does that relate to spirituality? Well, that's natural, because if you're actually connected to everybody and trying to understand what they're going through and try to be more loving towards them, like Biljana said, it's going to be a much more spiritual experience between you. It doesn't have to be the same religion or anybody else. It's a human. It's a human person. So the love exchange between you and the other, that is a form of spirituality, because there is no spirituality without love. So all of these things combined, it's practicality. It's how you. It's just immersed or integrated into my existence. It's not just, hey, I'm going to take an hour now and we're going to go do spirituality. It doesn't work. And if you try to do it that way, you're not going to have much progress, in my opinion, because it's not integrated into your whole belief system and into who you are as an individual, as a unit. So if you want to have progression in spirituality, you must practically do it. You must adapt it to your current existence, your current situation. Even today, as we are all locked down with the coronavirus, and some of the states in the U.S. are opening up with varying results. People are exploring their own individual habits. I mean, even Moji said that when we come out of this, you can rediscover yourself and do something different. Even one of my students, I don't know what her situation is with her job, but she decided that, oh, by the way, since I'm not going to work anymore, I'm staying home. Why don't I start baking things like I used to, or when I wanted to do things. So she started baking these things. And I saw something on Facebook the other day. She made these glorious, beautiful, amazing, like high quality bakery cakes. So she did that, and that's connecting to yourself. That again. See, even that is like a little piece of spirituality, because what you're doing is you're identifying with yourself. You're taking to what you like. So when you do things more that is connected to you, and you do it, like Arun said, with originality, with you being who you are, then it is much easier for you to connect to everything else and everybody else around you. So that would be my little statement about being spiritual and connecting spirituality to practicality. It is very much a practical experience. It is very much a normal way of life, in other words. That's
wonderful.
Yeah.
I really like how you combined the current situation of the coronavirus, to actually using your given talents or exploring your talents, because especially in this time, there's a lot of there's a rise in tiredness, fatigue, lethargy, because people are not sure what to do, what to expect.
Right.
There's so much of confusion, and also with, as you said, the lady's job situation, she's unsure. But actually, going within yourself and exploring that spiritual aspect of yourself and exploring your goals and dreams and wishes, and you can actually be more productive, which then produces something great and also reduces tiredness and fatigue. So that's a really nice point. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So I have another question for you. I know that you're from the United States, and it's quite a rushed society, I would think. So my question is, not everyone out there has the time and dedication to put all of these things into practice. The sadhanas and everything that was discussed regarding practical spirituality. So what tips can you give to someone who is watching this at this point and does not have sufficient time to put these into practice?
Sure. Yep, you said it right. I mean, New York, we are the city without any sleep, right? That's basically us. That is absolutely true. And unfortunately, it's a little bit more alive than usual with all the riots happening and everything else on top of Corona right now. I don't know if everybody knows about it, but there's quite a bit going on here. But that's for another day. So the aspect of time management, right? That's the question basically. How do you manage all of this work and home life and spirituality? It's a balance. And the very first time that I met Mohanji, I asked him, I think it was in Washington, D.C. or was it Virginia? I don't remember. Anyway, I think it was Washington, D.C. I asked him, Mohanji, listen, I know I could do what you're saying. I want to do what you're saying, but I don't have the time. Is exactly what the question was asking, right? So I asked this question many years ago because that was my biggest concern, because I know I don't have time. I know that my schedule is all over the place and I cannot set aside, let's say, like a lot of people do, which lately I've been able to do because I don't go to work that often because of the virus. So like you said, again, it's the coronavirus, even though it's horrible as it is, for some people, it can be a blessing. And for me, it's a little bit of a blessing that, that I get to stay home and do a little more practice. But the most important thing is that he said, okay, fine. You don't do everything that I told you to do the way I tell you to do it. You make your every single thing that you do a spiritual practice. So everything you do is sadhana, right? So even simple thing as eating your food, how can that be sadhana? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. First of all, the food that you're making, of course, is ahimsa, no harm from the food, from the source of the food. That's number one, right? Because if you're eating food that has any harm, how can that be enlightening you in your or continuing your spiritual journey? It's very difficult. So eating food that has very little himsa or harm will be beneficial. That's number one about your food. The second thing is, once you have the food in your hands or in front of you, what do you do with it? Do you just consume it? Or do you thank the universe and anybody else who want to thank, or do you offer it to your ancestors and appreciate the fact that you have food in front of your face, right? So not only do you appreciate the source of the food, but also once you have it in front of you, observe it, and thank where it came from, and be grateful that you have such offerings. I mean, varieties even to choose from. And then once you're consuming it, I would, it's again what Father says: put down the phone, put down the TV, turn it off, and observe the food. Because when you eat food with full awareness, it is a more complete meal. You taste it more, you appreciate it more, and even like taking a bite of a cake or whatnot. The first bite is the most glorious bite. You're craving something, you take the first bite, you're so good, and then everything after that is like, okay, whatever, it's just filling up your stomach. So if you're fully aware even during that time, that is still a part of spirituality. You're doing something that is in full awareness. So if you're in full awareness all the time, you're practicing spirituality. Also goes for anything that has to do with work. So even I'll give you a story yesterday. It's a little silly, but this is the one that I have most recently. So I'm very busy right now in the house, redoing the floors of the house. So we ripped up all the concrete and tiles and we threw it out. And actually, I didn't do that. I hired somebody. I can't do that. And now we're putting down the wood with the help of my wife's father as well. So as we started the process 2 days ago, I have a big picture of Mohanji in the living room. I looked at Mohanji and I said, "Listen, Mohanji, this is a very big room. This has to come out straight. Okay?" I said, "I'm going to start this very first line. I'm going to call your name." I did, the Mohanji mantra, and I dashed the first line. I made sure it was good. I said, I looked at him. I looked up the line. I said, "Okay." He said, "Okay." In my head, at least, I'm just imagining. So we started the line, and then 2 days later, yesterday evening, we came to the other side of the room. Now, if you know anything about lines and how they go, if you start something just a little bit off at an angle, and then you go, straight, the little part that's off, 1 degree off, will be like 4 or 5 degrees off as you get towards the end of the room. So by the grace of Mohanji and whoever was helping me that yesterday, I was off by maybe like a quarter of an inch by the time I got to the room, to the other side of the room. So I turned around to Mohanji and said, "All right, thank you for your assistance." See, even that, it's a little bit of a joke, but it's an awareness that you're doing everything with that awareness of somebody is watching you, somebody's there, somebody's taking care of you. So every time you get into the car, I have a habit of touching the steering wheel and touching my forehead, saying that, while I drive, take care of me. Don't, please protect my car and protect my family while I drive. Or any one of those practices, any one of those daily rituals that you're doing, even mindless matter, if you take into consideration and awareness into it, then you are practicing spirituality. And if you can actually sit down for Kriya in the morning, which I cannot do Kriya every morning, I try to do it at least 5 times, hopefully 7 times a day, but at least 5 times. And it's something that you can integrate into. And whenever, let's say, like some of you are in practical standards, let's say that you're going for a drive, and you can have one of these Mohanji blogs or one of the Mohanji videos, or even lately the podcast playing in the background as you're driving. So isn't that spiritual practice? Aren't you doing something spiritual to make your life a little bit better? So there's no such thing as, no, I can't do it. Yeah, you could. It's just, again, integrating into your daily life and making it more of a practical spirituality than to sit down and say, I'm doing it only this time at that time. Just make it your whole lifestyle and everything will flow right in.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful because a lot of people, as you mentioned before about spirituality and religion, and the sort of difference between the two, and the more personal, relationship with divine that you have with spirituality. And these lovely points are so beautiful, because the fact that we can continue with our sadhana by being ourselves is sadhana on its own, and it's the spiritual practices that you've mentioned. So thank you so much for these wonderful points. We do not have a lot more time, so we just have 2 more questions, and then and we could maybe run through them as quick as possible. So Arun, can you also touch on time management tips for those who are running the daily grind? So basically for the corporates out there who, really want to, combine proper time management with their daily life and with spirituality.
Thank you, Maheshwari. Yeah, it's the right question and the right person. Yeah. My life is a perfect example for that. I have a full-time job as a consultant, and it is very demanding, and sometimes it's include international travel as well. At the same time, I got a young family, and with my daughter is only 1.5 years. And also, without time management, I won't be able to do any of these properly. And in addition to these, I find time for doing volunteer work for Mohanji's mission a lot as well. So how can I do this? I can say in the past 4 years, my experience is getting up early is the key. Getting up early, get up at 4 o'clock. Immediately do your sadhana, because sadhana is the one anchoring me and increasing the awareness and all that of thing. There are 2 reasons. One, spiritual reason for doing the sadhana in the early morning, but practical reason for me, if I miss it in the morning, I won't be able to have time slot to do that. So do it first thing in the morning. I enjoy it. And when the mind is absolute clarity after the sadhana, I make a to-do list and prioritize things for the day. And by that one, I will go without then not wondering about that much, go with the list. So I can manage and do all three fronts, my professional responsibilities and my because of the spirituality, I can't run away and meditate in a cave in the Himalayas or whatever, because that's against my dharma. I got a family to look after. I have to pay my mortgage, so I have to work and look after my family. And also, I want to do volunteer. That's my way to adding value to the society, to the world. To all do this, I think if one thing helped me of all, it's getting up early. So probably it's a good idea for any of the viewers here there explore about early bird club, which is coming recently, because I'm getting up early for the last 4 years, and I can tell that that's more powerful. Morning hours are more productive. I got more hours to deliver more efficiently. So previously I was doing much work in the late night and getting up late in the morning, which is a vicious cycle. You go late, and you spend time, but very unproductive. So it's completely opposite. For the time management, I would say getting up early is the key, and then make your things a priority list and get taking from there. That's I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun. Yeah, actually, I was also struggling a lot with getting up early, and from all of the tips and suggestions that you guys have mentioned, getting up early is a really key aspect. And my whole life, as you've mentioned, Arun, with you as well, getting up early is so difficult for me. Just that few more minutes, which turns into an extra hour of sleeping for no reason. And recently, about a month back, Mohanji has inspired the Early Birds Club, and it's so wonderful. I'm also part of the Early Birds Club, and that has actually helped me a lot in being more productive. And as Biljana has said in the beginning, that few minutes between actually waking up and getting up, that actually determines your success. So taking that into consideration and being part of a global club that helps and inspires people to become positive, productive citizens of the world, I really feel that this being part of Early Birds Club has really sort of given me that sort of a spiritual kick that I needed to basically get up and continue with the sadhanas and the yoga, and be more aware of everything around me. So yeah, that's just a little bit on my part on practical spirituality and overcoming tiredness and fatigue as well. We'll just end with one more question. Arun has beautifully spoken about time management and volunteer activities. So Biljana, I would like to ask you, what is your view on the relationship between overcoming fatigue and engaging yourself in meaningful volunteer activities? Biljana, you'll have to just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Maheshwari. This is a beautiful question. Actually, when we want to go higher and higher in love and peace, to overcome our mind and be, let's say, better channels of this divine love and consciousness, and to be better channels to contribute more to the world, to be better for ourselves and others, we think about two main things, let's say, faith and purity. So these are two pillars on our path. And when we speak about purity, it refers to purity in thought, word, and action. And how are we going to achieve it? We need to, let's say, maintain purity on various levels, not only purity of body, let's say cleaning our body, which we all know and do mostly, but also about purity of mind, intellect. And this purity of mind and intellect is achieved with occupying our emotions and thoughts with something good for others, something selfless, where we sacrifice the immediate pleasure of this moment for some long-term benefit, especially if it is for somebody else, where we do not expect anything in return. So this is a huge also cleansing from within, and respecting that aspect of purity within us, where we gather a lot of, let's say, spiritual bank balance. that's the point where volunteering plays a big role. Mohanji mentioned several times that his biggest role on this earth is not techniques or teachings, although this is invaluable, I must say, really, really invaluable for transformation. This is what his biggest benefit, he says, is, and contribution, is creating platforms so that we can work on ourselves to accumulate this so-called spiritual bank balance where we serve selflessly. And this is not for, we can say we want to serve Mohanji. This is not for Mohanji, this is for ourselves, where we transform ourselves by volunteering, by doing selfless service or karma yoga, or to do something good for others, because this is like a boomerang. When you do something selflessly from unexpected sources, something similarly good energetically comes to you where you expect it the least. So this is something wonderful where we can also, apart from this, in the purity, we can practice, skills. For example, I learned a lot of skills through selfless service. I'm an English teacher, and a yoga teacher, but actually what I did in this Mohanji Foundation is a lot of different from that. I can't list it now, but this is the point where I would say, so practicing skills and serving, because this is inner cleansing, karma yoga cleanses a lot of things and prepares the ground so that we can get elevated and receive more of that divine consciousness, getting in tuned, align ourselves. There is also teamwork, which is ego bashing element, and let's respect that as well. So every aspect is really, really a gift, and thank Mohanji for that.
Thank you, dear Biljana. Yes, there's many wonderful platforms that Mohanji has created in terms of, the Mohanji platform. There's so many ways that people can get involved in terms of volunteering. There's the World Consciousness Alliance, inspired and motivated by Mohanji. There's the Early Birds Club that we've mentioned. And there's also, the three of you actually spoke a lot about how food impacts us as well. And there's also the Global Vegan Club as well that Mohanji has inspired. So there's so many wonderful activities that we can actually collectively and as a global family get involved in, and overcome that tiredness, overcome feelings of fatigue and what is the word, uninspired, so there's many things that we can focus on through his wonderful platform called Mohanji. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for joining me and the rest of the wonderful Acharyas, to dear Biljana, Arun, and Bimal for being part of this wonderful discussion today. Thank you so much. Jai Mohanji.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Maheshwari. Thank you for the opportunity, Mohanji, and thank you, divine friends, for watching.
Thank you, Maheshwari.